of Inspiral Hacks. We are on our season, and in this occasion, I have quite an special guest that I wanted to bring to you guys, actually, because we wanted to learn always about these specific actions for our life, for our life, then as well to transform it to our business. Now, let's go further to our introductions. Today, I have as a guest Ryan. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful. Ryan is a high performance mentoring and also an Olympic level coach. He's going to tell you more about that, but let me give first the word to Ryan to tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I've been involved with snowboarding as a coach, athlete, judge, technical director for, gosh, since I was 13 years old. And yeah, definitely through that, I've got a lot of experience working with high level athletes.
Yeah.
So, and right now it's right in the middle of the Olympics. So, watching a lot of my athletes compete, my last major role for coaching came for Beijing when I was working for Team China as the head coach for the slopestyle team. So, working with some a lot of athletes, seeing them now. Like last Olympics, we were very lucky to, yeah, that's that whole piece. Luck is something that comes when you're in the right place at the right time with the right set of skills.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that those are in place. But once they are, you just got to take that opportunity and grow. And yeah, with the last Olympic cycle and watching those athletes this Olympic cycle, it's really, really cool. Of course, I'm in a very different position now because since that Olympic cycle, I've decided with my wife, with my partner, to start a family. And with that now, I'm sort of transferring from that. I still do a little bit of snowboard coaching, a lot of really trying to help out athletes figure out how they can be able to grow and develop, but also along that, working more in the business side.
Yeah.
And luckily enough to work with ABN AMRO to do some goal setting with them, more once you've set your goals, how you can be able to attain them, and then other high performance habit building with individual clients along the piece. So there's still quite a bit of my snowboard coaching that I do, and I get a lot of requests for. But we're in Amsterdam right now,
Yeah.
so there's not really any mountains. We're very lucky that there's a lot of indoor ski hills, but definitely no mountains. And to be a high performance snowboard coach at an Olympic level, I have to travel a lot. And with my son being 3 years old and my youngest son just turning 1 next week, I want to be closer to them. And yeah, definitely with that. So now you're talking that, yeah, realistically, a high performance mentor and Olympic level coach. And luckily enough, I've also done lots of judging and management stuff for World Cups and different snowboard, ski, mountain biking, skateboarding programs. So now sort of transferring my skills into that world, more the business world and other different people that want to grow and develop themselves and understand, there's so much low hanging fruit that you can be able to use that, athletes are using every single day. And it can just make you that much better in your space.
Yeah.
So yeah, realistically, that's what I'm doing now. And in Amsterdam, it's a great place to be able to do it. So
Yeah, and I think actually also was this city is really the kind of city where you reinvent yourself. You're always finding a lot of founders, entrepreneurs here, people that actually are completely reinventing their lives because of emigration as well. Now, this is actually something actually most all founders actually have to encounter in their life. The source of what are the changes that they need to do, or what are the things that they need to improve in their life to have a healthy performance, let's say. And this is actually a question that, as an Olympic level coach, working with Olympians, yourself and an athlete, how do you see it actually? What are the things that actually people are doing right in their life at the moment that they should keep doing?
well, I think that that's the having your routines, like your daily routines that make sure that you get in the right mindset, you get in the right mind, body, and soul. And I think that that's one of those major pieces when it comes to sport, performing on the field, performing on game day. That's one thing, but it's such a small little piece. It's everything you do outside of that. So for definitely a lot of my athletes, it's making sure that they focus on the big stuff first, because you've got to make sure you're eating right, that you're sleeping, your recovery is just as important as your training.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is overlooked a lot in business, because everyone has all these huge grandiose goals and things that they're trying to work on, but that's when you're healthy, right? And when you're healthy, you have these goals. And as soon as you're not healthy, which happens a lot, because so many people that are entrepreneurs or business people, they put so much into what they're doing that, when they wake up in the morning, they just like jump right into it, as opposed to doing some self-care things,
Yeah.
making sure that, so for example, my wife and I, in the morning, we wake up, we have our water, vitamins, and then I try my hardest to get my meditation and stretching in. Of course, with our kids, we it's some mornings are a little more difficult than others, but those little things that, like, self care is not selfish. We have to make sure that we take care of ourselves. On an airplane, they always tell you put your mask on before you help others,
Yeah.
and I think that that's one of those pieces that so many people in that world forget about, and then that leads to major issues down the road, and then you can no longer focus on the big stuff. And one of the other pieces, I think that a lot of people have a superpower, and when we sort of reach a goal, or we get to a point where we're feeling comfortable and we want to grow, everybody wants to grow so much that they forget that, okay, this is our core, this is what got us there. So we have to make sure that we focus on that, but along the route you still have to grow and develop. But realistically, if you got your core set of skills, you're you're learning and growing and developing, and then you push into like what's scary, like where you go too far, where you're like, oh. So you've got to keep on growing so the fear doesn't get close, but you still have to remember that your core is there, and you can rely on that when things go a little bit awry, or if things are perhaps not going in the way that you want them to. You gotta like focus a little bit on the wins sometimes.
Correct. Remain
So,
flexible in a way as well.
oh heck yeah! Like flexibility is not only good for your body. I
Yeah.
think it's good for business. It's good for your skills. Like it's and we all have that ability, but the less we flex that muscle, the harder it is to be flexible.
Yeah. Yeah. Before while we were introducing actually maybe the topics that we were going to discuss today, Ryan was telling me about a little bit about story about the Olympians at the moment, what they are doing as well, that in their careers, in the process, how they are preparing themselves for that. How do you see that there are things that actually that in that high level where
Mhm.
there things that actually we could all have a reflection or
Well, yeah, like this is one of the things that I keep seeing every time I go to the Olympics, either being there as like an athlete, as a coach, or just even like this Olympics, I'm not there. Like it's really interesting for me, because like I've been a part some way, shape, or form for the Olympics since 2010.
uh,
So like it's really, really weird being on this side,
yeah,
especially like a month ago, I was working with some athletes in Austria, like doing some prepping for them, and just sort of seeing these little different things that I'm like, from the outside looking in, it's like, oh well, how is that not? How can you not see that? But also on the other side of the chain, like the other side of the coin, when I was preparing for 2020 or 2010 Olympics myself as a rider, the amount of stress that I was under and how I couldn't see things that were totally obvious for others. Like
well,
Johari's window is one of those pieces where it's like you can't see it. Others can see it totally clear, but you can't see it yourself. And I think with the Olympics, there's so many athletes, because it only happens every 4 years. They're they feel the need that they have to do something different, and they don't actually think about what got them there in the first place, right? So that's that. And when you think about the Olympics, there's a lot less when it comes to snowboarding in the Olympics. You're competing against a lot less athletes than some of the other World Cups, pardon me, and other competitions along the way. Like a couple of weeks ago in locks, there was more athletes competing there, and essentially like a lot more difficult to even just make finals
yeah,
compared to what it is at the Olympics. But that happens every year, and has been happening every year for a very long time. So it's one of the longest running snowboard competitions in the world. But what had success there, realistically, there's a very good chance that it'll have success at the Olympics as well. And that ability to ground yourself and then focus on the time being. Like the whole mindfulness coming from whether it's a deep breath in and just slowly letting it out a couple of times to regain your focus and just really making sure that you're in that moment as
Yeah.
opposed to like, this is happening. I've got like interviews here. I got to do this. I got to do this. It's like, first off, you got to get yourself right.
Yeah.
Like that's the bottom line. And yeah, so I think watching the Olympics this time, I can really see that in some of my riders. And even I was working with another rider from Spain, and she rode amazingly well at the Olympics for her level. And it's just really nice to be able to see when those kind of things can be able to happen. The Olympics is so special because it only happens every couple of years. But
Yeah.
with that, I think the more that you can remember the things that got you there as an athlete will give you success there as well most of the time. And when I look at sport in general, so many times parents like coming to the Netherlands, I sort of stepped away from high performance and I was helping out a club here around Amsterdam with just trying to make sure that they got their curriculum set and had some mentoring of their coaches and just some consistency within their program. And a lot of the parents are always asking, okay, well, how do we get from here to the Olympics? And, of course, having a plan is one of those pieces. And knowing, like, okay, if your end goal is here, we got to work our way back and make action steps along the route. And a lot of it is like the nice thing with snowboarding and sport most of the time, there's a rule book. So if you know the rule book, then you can be able to make a better plan. And I think sometimes in business, there's a little less, but there's always those different things that you see. You can understand it's like, okay, these things are necessity, and building those in, understanding your business so you can be able to build a better plan. But when it looks at like an athlete growing and developing, I always talk about making sure that you've got that intrinsic motivation, you've got that
Yeah.
desire, that passion, that drive. And you can definitely see it in business because you see a lot of different people that just like you see him, you're like, wow, that guy is he's hyped, he's energized, he knows what he wants, he's self-confident, and you can be able to see it. So of course that's important. The other piece is having for snowboarding primarily and also skateboarding, but also having the facilities around you that you can be able to grow and develop the skills that you need to. And then lastly is your support team. Through the coaching training that I took out of Canada, we talk about it as the IST,
Yeah.
integrated service team. And that's your like coaches, your sports psych, your nutritionists. Like it's a little bit. Every athlete needs a little different help from certain people, and then sometimes they need more help along the mental side. Sometimes,
Yeah.
like a lot of the times in the beginning, people think, "Oh yeah, I eat healthy," but then you actually go to a nutritionist or a dietitian, and it's like, "Oh, okay, like
Wow.
so these are different pieces because like actually logging all of your food
Yeah.
it's a very I know you and I have talked about different diet things, but it's insane. Like you can really get into it, and until you try it you don't know if it works.
Yeah.
And so yeah, realistically those three things are making sure that you've got the passion, you've got your surroundings supporting it through your places to be able to train or work or so on and so forth, and then the people around you to support that.
Yeah.
So I talk to a lot of the parents and people that are trying to grow. Those are the things that are needed. I think they're also very applicable in the business world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Especially, I think actually those last 10%, it's always so different than the rest 90%, and actually everyone is working on towards those 90%, but they stop. Then they think, okay, I'm really good, and that's when high performance, Olympic level,
well,
really
and
comes.
that's that whole piece is
Yeah.
like getting to good
Yeah.
is pretty. It takes a lot of work, a lot of
Yeah.
effort. Like Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hour. Like there's so many different ways to be able to look at it, but ultimately, like until you get that core settled, like
Yeah.
going from good to great takes a lot more. Then you can get into the like marginal gain theories where you're trying to get all these like smaller gains or like incremental gains to be able to get that little bit. But until you get that core sorted, like with routines, consistency, and having a good team around you, being in the place where you need to be, those are those things you really need to focus on.
Yeah. I was also watching the Olympics, and I was impressed as well about the level of the mental tenacity as well because of the risk that you need to take sometimes just to be winning the medals. And
Yeah, well, when I was working for China during the last Olympic cycle, this is something that Ola and I talked about. So he's from biathlon. He's the
yeah,
greatest of all time. There's no denying it. But talking with him, because he was coaching biathlon for China, and he just talked about that with snowboarding and essentially freestyle skiing in the Olympics, the risk that you go through to do these, looking at big air and like the, yeah, going 21, 23, like all these rotations, five rotations and more, you're like, wow, it's the risk is insanely high, and it's for two medals right now. And then for biathlon or cross country skiing, like all these other sports, like speed skating, I watched Weidemann. They got a gold, another, but they have this opportunity for multiple gold medals, and it's very similar training style. But when you're doing big air and slope style, yes, like slope style is jumps and rails. But if you just do half pipe, you're only going for one medal.
yeah,
And the level of snowboarding halfpipe this Olympics was an amazing show of like athleticism. Even though it's like when you look at snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing, there's a lot more culture within those sports
yeah,
and a little bit of a fight about saying that they're athletes, but the level of snowboarding, skateboarding, like you
insane.
cannot do it now if
Yeah,
you're not a good athlete. And I think
yeah,
actually, if you go onto YouTube and check out the Olympic channel, they had a really good one on Spend where they actually go on to the anatomy of an athlete. And you think of like snowboarders, there's a really bad image a lot of the times, also like where it's just like, oh yeah, they just eat hamburgers and pizza and this and that, but they actually like break down Sven and his essentially his athletic level, and how it's like they actually say is like you would be a high level athlete in any sport. All of his markers are aligned with that, and I think that that's also something that you can really see with the sports now. And I think so. My wife, she's a strength and conditioning coach,
okay,
and she's actually taking care of a checkers team now. And that's that other piece is like, okay, well, why would she do strength and conditioning with a checkers team? Like checkers, you're just moving pieces, but you have to be there for hours. Same with chess. Like, like you have to be there, you have to be able to focus. So if you're sitting for hours and your back is sore, are you going to make the best decision? I don't think you are. So I
exactly.
think that there's that whole piece, and and that's yeah, there's a major alignment there with how being in good shape can help you be better in the business world. But yeah, so ultimately, I think that yeah, it's there's so many parallels between it, and now with the Olympics, just watching it, it's such a beautiful thing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
No, and then is the question, Ryan. Basically, being an athlete, but yet now is being an Olympic level coach.
Mm-hmm.
That requires quite some milestone. So, talking about Ryan now, what happened, Ryan? How was one of those lessons in your life that actually brought you into this amazing world?
Well, so when I retired, I was thinking about this just the other day, actually, because like when I retired, and so I was living in Whistler while I was an athlete, and then when I retired, I moved to Calgary, and
Okay,
I'm going to Calgary on Sunday to coach for the Netherlands for the World
okay,
Junior Championships, and with that, when I moved to Calgary, for some reason, I don't know why, but like because I always talk about like your heart has to like give you that fire, your gut has to guide you towards it, and then if you can't figure out the two between, like which way to go, that's where you use your brain to like go through the data and sort of figure it out, and you do your pros and cons and so on and so forth.
okay,
And for some reason, everything was taking me to Calgary because
yeah,
like when I retired, it would have been easy to move from Whistler to Vancouver. They're an hour and a half away, but something just didn't feel right. And then when I moved to Calgary, I really didn't want to work a normal snowboarder job. There was lots of opportunity to go because the whole time that I was an athlete, I was coaching. I was coaching summer camp. I was coaching different snowboard clubs like Whistler Valley Snowboard Club in Whistler, and so like it was one of those things. Glacier Summer Snow Camp, snowboard camp in the summer. Like those were like really, really good ways for me to be able to earn some money as a athlete, because the Canadian program where I wasn't the highest athlete, so I wasn't getting everything covered for me. So I still had to work
Yeah.
4 or 5 jobs. Which when I told that to the Chinese team, because they get to be professional athletes, like they get paid as athletes, that's their only thing that they do. Then they're like, "What? You had to have multiple different jobs?" I was like, most countries in the world like don't support, like once you get up to that top percent, yeah, of course, then you're going to be taken care of. But and this is going a little bit off the topic. You may have to bring me back in,
Yeah.
but I think this is also something that I've talked a lot with people is, so a lot of athletes, they see that top performer and they're like, oh, well, they've got this, they've got this, they've got this. But in order to get there, they did it without that most of the time. There's very few athletes that end up getting to the top of where they are, or at least getting to a high enough level where like, okay, they're a high performer. We have to give them the tools to be able to keep them performing and to get that little bit higher.
Yeah.
And so many athletes in this day and age see that top performer getting all of those things. And they're like, well, I need that to be able to grow. It's like, look back to where they were in the beginning. Like, they didn't have access to that. They didn't get that until they showed that they have the ability to perform. And I think that that's also a lot of what ends up happening with people that have businesses and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, you got to put in a lot of time, energy. So going back to the whole like transitioning out of competing and being an athlete and more into a coach, I tried to work. I worked at Apple doing business to business sales. I worked at a snowboarder, like a outdoor store as a manager for a department, and all great experiences. Like my whole idea to move to Calgary was so I could start a family. And one thing that I noticed living in Whistler, it was a lot of transient people came there. Very few people wanted to stay there for the long term.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if I'm going to find the woman of my dreams, very romantic vision of that. Like I had a very good idea of like what I was looking for, and they weren't coming. And if they came, they were leaving back to where they came from. So fell in love with a girl from Japan, um, followed her to Japan, which was really great for me mentally. Like learned a lot because I was an exchange student in Japan when I was in high school, and then I went back over as a pro snowboarder essentially. So
Yeah.
I won the Japanese slopestyle in
Okay.
2004, 2005, and then was able to do the pro tour. But yeah, and that actually was the catalyst for me to think, okay, well, I can. Japan, I'm not sure if you've watched these Olympics for snowboarding, but they're owning snowboarding, and
Yeah.
they're doing really, really well. And yeah, watching like Daiki and Nishida, they're good friends of mine.
Okay.
So the Japanese coaches, like I used to actually, Nishian used to sponsor me. He had a snowboard product called Maybe that he did with Tadashi, and I was one of their riders. And now he's coaching the slopestyle team. So and Daiki and I used to compete on the World Cup together. But so went over to Japan, followed my love at that time, and in the end, snowboarding like sort of took over, and yeah, our love sort of separated. But I realized that okay, if I'm doing well here, I can be able to do well internationally because we'll watch some of the big names in snowboarding coming out of Japan. It was like, yeah, okay, I can
Yeah.
be able to do that. So that essentially like showed me that I could be able to do it as an athlete, and that sent me back into snowboarding. And the same thing happened when I was working at Apple and I was working at MEC, Mountain Equipment Co-op in Canada. It just kept on pulling me back. So I ended up working with Augustinho. He just was in the Olympics. He was competing in halfpipe. So amazingly proud of him. Like since he was like he was younger than 10. He was, I think, I started working with him when he was 8 or 9, along with some other riders from Argentina, because he was actually living in Ushuaia with his mom. And yeah, that got me back into coaching. And it was 100% just passion. Like every single time I would work a normal job that I was like trying to do to find the woman of my dreams, buy a house, have a white picket fence, and just build that up because that's where I thought I needed to go. Snowboarding and sport just kept on pulling me in.
Yeah.
And from working with Augustinho, Joao, and some of the other athletes that came from Ushuaia, um, I got a job coaching Brazil for para snowboarding at 2018. And yeah, that was an amazing experience. I'd never worked in para before, which one of the cooler things that I actually learned through para was that whole ability where so many times we look at what people aren't able to do as opposed
Yeah.
to looking at their abilities. And in the para world, the abilities that they have and the like also you as a coach, you have to let them do things, which that I think looking now and I have these little mini epiphanies. I think a lot of people have them, but like this right now is my epiphany of like, okay, with my kids, just letting them learn and grow and develop. There's a very big similarity, and I learned that skill, I think, working with para, where it's just that whole like, okay, give them the tools to be able to grow and develop and find those abilities.
Yeah.
And so for Pyeongchang, I was working as the national team coach for Brazil, and the athlete I was working with, he was usually and so Andre was like usually around the bottom part of the competition. And at the Olympics or at the Paralympics, he was top 10 for both disciplines. So like the federation was insanely happy with me. And from that was able to go to Australia and do a summer with them. But yeah, it just didn't really feel right. And a friend of mine started working with China, and that's when it really started. But my role in China, I started off as essentially a talent transfer coach. So they had a whole bunch of athletes that were starting to snowboard. We went through 500 in our group and then chose out 50 of those to be able to start a full time program and work from the bottom up. And really good experience to really see like,
Yeah.
okay, if you focus on these pieces, because there's a lot of instructors that go into coaching and then sort of seek out growth and development through the federations. Whereas this was that whole piece. I was like, okay, like I know, like if you're creating a snowboard rider, like if you're going to build a rider from the bottom up using what you learn as an instructor, I always felt I'm like the core things that you focus on don't align with what the end goal was.
Okay.
So I was able to implement the ideas that I had to essentially a group of beginner snowboarders and see like how it actually resulted in growth and development. And I think that that was an amazing opportunity for me to be able to test and then get information and then grow that information to what I've been able to do in the Netherlands and with other athletes since then into the national team as one of the coaches.
Yeah.
And through that, we were over there working with the team in Secret Garden, and we were doing essentially Chinese nationals. And through that, because of my judging experience, because I had like judging experience for World Cups,
Yeah.
they're like, okay, can you also judge slopestyle? And we worked fairly close with slopestyle, even though we were snowboard half pipe. Like there was still some like connections there, and so I was like, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
And so I judged that. And earlier the year before, one of the slopestyle athletes was in New Zealand and trying to work on his triple, and he had doubles down no problem. But I was like, okay, well, he seemed really frustrated, and I knew him. I was like, okay, well, show me the footage. What's happening? And I just took a quick little look. I'm like, okay, at this part here, I think if you, oh, there you go. That's one of those pieces as a coach trying to
Yeah.
use that. If you change this piece rather than
Yeah.
the I think, changing the nose to the nose. But so working on this phase of the trick here, if you look in this direction and allow your shoulder to go this way, it will make the flip happen a lot easier and it'll give you more visibility for your landing. After I gave him that feedback, he'd been working for a couple of weeks, moving from double to triple on snow, and he wasn't able to get it. The next day he landed it. And funny enough, fast forward to that Chinese nationals, he was now the coach of the national team because he realized he wasn't at the right level. So he was like coach and also still a little bit of riding with, but he had that faith and he was like, after we did the competition, I gave my ranking and I was like, okay, I see some like little things that they can be able to change. Do you mind if I write out like what I see, why, and how they can be able to make those changes? And he was like, that would be great. So I did that, and then they offered me the job of the national team coaching or the national team coach for slopestyle. But I was so happy with half pipe. Like it was like I was really, really happy, and I didn't want to make that change. So
And those are the details that basically you only get them by long experience. You don't really get them
But
by just like by luck or
I think there's a definite piece between like experience usually leads to self confidence.
yeah,
So like when I was going through the Olympic cycle with China, like starting from the bottom, like just a talent development team that was like locally grown and developed to all the way up. So in the end, I may have turned down the slope style coach position, but then they like were like, okay, if you don't take it, then the team is done. We're breaking it down because Yiming was with Sato, with Yas, and they had a good thing going, but they didn't have a national program
yeah,
even though I was able to work with Ming a bunch on hill, and he was really unhappy because at that competition I scored someone else higher than him with good
okay,
reason. We talked about it, we grew, we developed, and I think so. There's a lot of talk about you win or you learn, and I think that's not correct at all because you learn from winning, you learn from losing, you learn from training. It's all learning, and the more that we can be able to break it down that way and see it that way, there's definitely a lot of within snowboarding, within sport, within life. There's a lot of people that are very emotionally charged. Then there's very logical people. But at the end of the day, it's how you can be able to apply that knowledge
yeah.
and go in that direction, and then going back to your heart and your gut, right? So, and I think that with that piece, learning from your wins, learning from your losses, learning from your training, it's all experience and how you categorize it. I did a camp in December with an athlete from Calgary, and yeah, I just did camp. So she's got a full time coach back home, and but when it was done and I was handing over the information, the coach was like, "Oh my gosh, you gave me so much information. It's so detailed." I'm like, "But that's the way that it should be, right? And that's
Yeah.
the way I want to be represented. That's the way when people see it, they're like, okay, he's dedicated, he's motivated, and he's got the experience." And as soon as people can have that, going into the emotional learners,
Yeah.
if they have confidence in you as a coach, as a leader, the ability for them to grow and develop is going to be higher.
Yeah.
And I think I really got that in the Olympic cycle with China. Because before that, I had lots of questions like, okay, am I doing the right thing? Like I would see so many of these coaches that I would put on a pedestal. And then all of a sudden I started feeling like, okay, no, like now that I've done these things, I've seen the results, I know that I'm in that upper echelon of coaches.
Yeah.
And I feel confident that before I used to think, oh, well, if this athlete went to this coach, they'd be in such better hands. And now I see that there's not a lot of people out there with the confidence, the experience, and the willingness to like really take action. And that anyone who comes to me, I'm the person they're going to, so I'm their best option at that point. And starting to look at it that way, where you have that confidence to be able to help people grow and develop, just really makes a major difference in that person's growth and development.
Wow. Sounds to me also that there's an interesting opportunity to ask you this question as well because you know I for the past years I've been interviewing as well different kinds of experts, especially coaches. Some of them they call themselves as well transformational coaches or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yet one of the points that I have discovered so far is that most of them they come from a career of they were some financial managers in a company or they were the engineers
Mm-hmm.
and then they enter into transformational coaching
Mm-hmm.
where a lot has to do with your body, with your mind. And I do believe that actually for anyone that actually is from those out there actually that probably actually they would also like to know, see it actually you're from also from a world of where body and mind was the first
Mm-hmm.
milestone and not even milestone the whole experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see it actually in the sense of even training coaches
Mm-hmm.
and to be better coaches? How what would you say actually like has been your experience then actually to be in that level?
Yeah, because like when I was the coach developer for Alberta and also going through my like facilitators training, that is that whole piece of, and I think also a major lesson to take it back to when I worked for Mountain Equipment Co-op as a manager. That's when I really realized I was like, okay, I can be able to control how much effort I put forth, but all I can be able to do in someone else is inspire and try to like light that fire. At the end of the day, I can't be able to be mad at them for not giving 100%.
Yeah.
I can only be like, okay, I can do what I can do. And I think that that's definitely something that I learned there that's really helped me down the road. And then also looking at like, okay, when I coach coaches, there's so many different tools and techniques and theories and so on and so forth. But you think about a mechanic, they've got a big toolbox that they go in, and one tool is not going to work for every single car. And so many different coaches I know in my field, they have their style. You've got the motivator coaches, you've got the technical coaches, you've got the administrative coaches. But one of those pieces that I like to really utilize as much as possible is my toolbox, and understanding that I can be able to be a bit of a chameleon and do what's needed for the athlete.
Yeah.
And usually the best way to be able to find out what's going to be best for your athlete, best for your client, is getting to understand them and building that rapport. And once you can be able to do that, I think that that's when you can start, trying to do different pieces in the coaching world. I I've heard it a lot of times where a coach has said, like with an athlete, so I'll work with an athlete for a pretty short amount of time, and the athlete will like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I learned that. I've been working on that forever. Thank you for doing that. And literally, I'll see the coach in the background be, I told them that. Like, well, that is the piece. You like 90% of the time, we can tell somebody like something, but they don't hear it.
Yeah.
They may have heard it, but they haven't like actually deeply like brought it into their self. And you don't get that from just telling them one way. You have to tell them in multiple different ways. Like there's so many different roads to roam. There's so many different tools to be able to use. And if you truly believe that that's the way that's going to help them get there, you have to try your hardest to get them to see it. And that's not going to be the exact same path for everyone. Of course, now with all of my experience, I know that this is the shortest route. But through life, there's some ups, there's some downs, there's some lateral movements, there's vertical movements, there's going to be some peaks, there's going to be some plummets, there are some valleys, and you just got to stick to it. Like you truly believe in it.
Yeah.
And also, people like we talked about it earlier with a lot of business people like that are at the top of their game. They seem like they're at the top of the world and so much confidence, and they don't get there from just being unsure and stuff. Like they really truly believe.
Yeah.
And also they don't give up. So I think when I coach coaches, that's one of the major things that I try to get them to understand is that there's not just one tool for every job.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to be a great coach, you have to be committed to finding out what it takes and get using different tools and being okay with failing. So yet again, coming back, you win, you learn, you lose, you learn, you train, you learn. Yeah. That's the same for the way that you use your craft, right? So if you're scared of failing, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think that that's going to be one of those pieces that, even if the puck goes in the net, Canadian, I have to have a hockey analogy. Even if the puck goes in the net, you can look back to why it went in the net, right? It's not just being content with the win, right? Or content with the goal. It's like figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and then using that information to grow and develop even further. So, I think when I work with a lot of coaches, pardon me, I have my script, I have like what I'm trying to get across, and so on and so forth. You talk about the major pieces, but then with each of them, I'm going to see their superpowers and letting them know what that superpower is, and be like, hey, like this is a way you can really make some lasting change with people. But then also just being like, okay, like you don't have to rewrite yourself. You may have this area of growth and opportunity, but don't forget you've got this strength as well. And when in doubt, go back to that, and then you can be able to come back. While I was working for Apple, that was one of those pieces that I think I got lost in. I really got lost in. They're like, oh, I'm doing all these things wrong, as opposed to, okay, I'm doing these things well, and I'm going to take a little chunk of these things that I'm not doing so well, and everything's a lot easier to bite or like take down when you take it bite by bite.
Yeah.
Right. As soon as you try to like eat an entire steak in one mouthful, you're just gonna make a mess.
Yeah. Oh man, actually, like the way you said it as well, it's I remember actually that in terms of business as well, I heard it that only when they are tired of listening to you is when they're really just starting to listen. And you said it in a way more interesting way actually. Like you need to repeat it in a different way of method for them to reach it. Amazing, Ryan. In this moment, considering all the experiences that you are bringing into your field, with all these experiences in the Olympics, I'm pretty sure actually many of the founders in our podcast, in many of the founders that subscribers, by the way, thank you for that. If you like this, please share a like and subscribe yourself, share it with your friends. That way, actually, we can bring also more great people like Ryan to our
Mhm.
team. Now, if they would like to get in touch with you, if they would like to learn how they could work with you,
Mhm.
how would that be that best for you?
So my professional connection is primarily through LinkedIn, and it's Ryan Richard Rausch. I'm sure in the bottom you can be able to have a link
We
to
will
it.
make all the links here. Okay.
My Instagram and social, like my Instagram and YouTube pages, are also like great ways to be able to connect. My YouTube, I've been primarily focusing on how I'm growing in the skateboard world because I never really skateboarded growing up. Like I only skateboarded because I couldn't snowboard year round. So it's a lot of that, but it's a great way to reach out. And same with my Instagram. My Instagram, I've been on there since 2010, so long that when I started my Instagram account, I was still I guess you would say, a career DJ. So I was DJing 3 to 5 nights a week. And so it's DJR3,
Yeah.
like literally DJR
Right.
number three
Okay.
on Instagram. That's the easiest way to find me. And yeah, still check it quite a bit. So those are the three different platforms I use a lot. And yeah, look forward to hearing from anybody that wants to help grow and develop with me.
In any case, I can imagine that Olympians they just are finishing now, but they already start working for the next one.
Well, so one of the pieces that a lot of people don't realize, and it's changing a little bit, and it's something I didn't realize as an athlete when I was an athlete, year one of the Olympic cycle is usually when the top performers take a little bit of a breather. And then the closer you get to the Olympics, so year three is when there's a lot of progression, growth in the sport as far as difficulty. The criteria for snowboarding are difficulty, amplitude, variety, execution, and progression. The difficulty piece really, really grows in year three of an Olympic cycle. So any federation that sort of understands that takes year one to grow and develop their younger athletes. And then with high performance, they call it usually a pyramid. So
Yeah.
you've got your entrance and then they grow up. And at the top in the high performance part, there's a lot less high performers. And so as the Olympics gets closer and closer, it focuses more and more usually on that top part of the high performance pyramid. So realistically, there's going to be a lot of younger riders that will be coming in year one, year two, usually, or less experience. But I think that's the other part with business and sport. Myself, I didn't do my first World Cup until I was 28 years old.
Yeah.
So, and I was competing against kids that were teenagers. So I think that there's still that ability, and a lot of science has shown that late developers grow to be stronger, faster, and so. But the one thing that they lose is self confidence. So ultimately, to go on that little tangent, I think like there's definitely a lot older athletes within the Olympics now, and it's not just a young sport, but there's a lot of social, like yeah, social media and a lot of industry pressure to find the new young kid. So I like to still empower the veterans or
Yeah.
the older athletes because that's what I was. And I realized in my 20s, I was like, I don't want a case of the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Like I would have done this, I could have done that. Like those woulda, coulda, shouldas. I think that's the reason why action trumps any planning. Like
Yeah.
you can plan until you're blue in the face, but until you take action, nothing's going to happen. So yeah, realistically.
That's awesome. Oh, there you have it, Ryan. Thank you very much for being here, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to us, and let's hope we'll see you soon again, and hopefully maybe actually as well in the screen
Exactly.
on an Olympics with a team.
Yeah, well, I'll be in Calgary at Junior World Champs
Yeah.
on Sunday, and yeah, excited. I always love coaching. I feel so comfortable and so confident when I'm coaching, compared to being a father where there's so many news. It's a really nice place to be.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ryan.